The Denver Broncos and the optics of their season are in a very rough spot after Sunday's disappointing letdown. They collapse against the Washington Commanders 35-33. What does it mean for this team the rest of the season? What's the vibe? Well, you're going to get all that and much more. Today's brand new episode of Good Morning Broncos with a cup of coffee. Good morning, Broncos Country. Welcome into another episode of Good Morning Broncos, your daily morning bite-sized Broncos show as we recap what's going on in Dove Valley. What's the latest from the game? What's the outcome? What's setting the table for this upcoming week's game? You get all of it here on Mile High Sports on the YouTube page, every team, every day. So if you're a Colorado sports fan, hit that subscribe button down below so you never miss out on any of the action. Shout out to our friends over there at Superbook Sports for sponsoring today's episode of the show here. Broncos Country, we have a lot to talk about here. And unfortunately, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be calm at this point here. And certainly, I think when you talk to the fan base, you look on social media, the fan base, they are in a rough spot right now. They're frustrated, and rightfully so. Sunday's loss to the Washington Commanders was very, very disappointing because Denver had complete control of their destiny to dictate the pace of the game, and it slipped through their fingertips here once again. I'm Cody Roark here, Broncos reporter for Mile High Sports here in Broncos Country. Let's get to what was here for Denver. I mean, overall, very promising start to them in this game. In the first quarter, they get the ball. They have a very impressive drive there that sees Jaleel McLaughlin, the undrafted rookie free agent out of Youngstown State. He scores his first career NFL touchdown. Denver goes up 7-0. Denver's defense, they hold up, force Joey Slye to kick a field goal. Okay, Denver's got a 7-3 lead. But then from that point forward, Denver went off. And we talk about Russell Wilson going down deep to Marvin Mims for a 60-yard touchdown. He had 2 catches in this game there, Broncos Country, 2 catches for 113 yards and 1 touchdown. And at that point, Denver's rolling 21-3 after Russell Wilson found Brandon Johnson for a touchdown. And all of a sudden, I think all of us sitting in the press box, I think all the fans, because look, there's fans that sit right below me and Anilo Pirro during the game. You can see him through the glass there. There was just this different energy. There was this different vibe inside the stadium at Empire Field a Mile High. My boss, Nate Lundy, he texted me and he said, hey, put this out there. The vibe here in the crowd is much different than it was last week. Fans were optimistic, and all of a sudden it was like an illusion. Denver up 21-3, moving the ball effectively downfield, scoring points. I mean, they scored 21 points. They haven't gotten past the 16-point mark in quite some time here, but all of a sudden, efficiency. But then something bad happened in this game, and all of a sudden the Broncos that we saw a little bit of last year, they reared their face here once again. And I think right here, Broncos fans are very concerned, and there's a lot of reasons I think it's very valid here to be concerned. Now, those of you that know me on social media, those of you that maybe watch me or listen to me on other things around the NFL sphere, you know that I'm usually a logical thinking, optimistic guy. I look at things from a coach's perspective, more so action-based, like, okay, hey, if there's a problem, how do you fix it? I'm looking at this Broncos team right now, folks, and I simply don't know how to fix what is going on with them. I don't know how to fix the issues that we are seeing because you have a 21-3 lead in this game. You have to continue to put your foot on the throat. You have to continue to go forth. And Broncos head coach Sean Payton told us after the game that there were some issues for Denver. And I think in that first half, you saw it. There were a couple times they had to burn their timeouts because they didn't get the right personnel in, and they were too slow in getting the play in. And I felt like his comments were very interesting because he talked about Russell Wilson, and he said one of the things along the lines of, if we have to wristband it, we will, which means that, hey, if we're struggling getting the play call in from my headset to you and you to that, we're just going to have to put all the plays on a wristband, and you're going to call. We're going to say, okay, hey, 85. Okay, and you look at where 85 is, and it's this play, and that's how you call it. I think on first glance, you really didn't see those issues from watching the game live in the press box or whether you're watching it at home. You didn't necessarily see that as an issue, but for Sean Payton, he acknowledged that, hey, this was an issue for us, and this hurt us in many ways because all of a sudden there was a snowball effect of negative plays that happened here for the Broncos, particularly on offense, and it trickled down to the defensive side of the ball. Denver gets the ball back almost at midfield. Russell Wilson, he rolls out to his left. He's trying to just get positive yards. He gets brought down by a defender. You could also see on the replay, defender grabs his face mask a little bit, makes contact, drives through, swipes, knocks the ball out, and it's a fumble. And Washington, they jumped on it. And then all of a sudden, Sam Howell and the offense, they get some light in them on the Commanders side of things. They march downfield. They get to the 3-yard line, and it's 4th and goal. Okay, Denver's defense is doing a really good job holding up, and that was the theme through the first week. I thought they did a really good job in the red zone for the most part against the Las Vegas Raiders in week 1. And all of a sudden, you have Sam Howell. He uncorks a throw to Logan Thomas, who catches it, but is blasted by Kareem Jackson. And he manages to hold on to the ball and maintain it. It's a touchdown, but Kareem Jackson is flagged for unnecessary roughness and is more likely going to be fined again. But the NFL, as it was reported after the game, Adam Schefter had talked about it, the NFL will look to review it, and there is a possibility that Kareem Jackson could be suspended by the NFL. And so all of a sudden, you have the fumble, you have the ejection, and now you give up a touchdown to the Commanders. So rather than you going into halftime with the score of 21-3, it's 21 to about 11 at that point. All of a sudden, you're kind of scratching your neck a little bit like, okay, hey, I was talking with Andrew Mason. Obviously, you all know him, Denver Sports. I was talking to Andrew Mason at halftime before things happened there. And look, it was unfortunate that Denver had to like the Super Bowl 33 team that they had there from 1998 to beat the Atlanta Falcons. They honored them at halftime. It's unfortunate the outcome was what it was here. But Mason and I were talking before the second half even kicked off, and we said, Denver's in a very interesting point here. You feel the pendulum starting to swing here a little bit. And surely that was the case here. I mean, Denver lost all momentum. Look, they lost momentum going into halftime, and then the Commanders come out. Denver gets the ball. The Commanders forced a 3-and-out very, very quickly. I mean, Deron Payne himself single-handedly sabotaged what the Broncos wanted to do on the offensive side of the ball in their very opening possession of the second half here. They sacked Russell Wilson for an 11-yard loss there, so Denver faced a long field situation once again. He had a tackle for a loss. He also had a tip pass at the line of scrimmage. And all of a sudden, Denver has to punt it away here once again. And then the defense just simply could not get off the field. I mean, Denver defensively on third down, you look at the stats, it's a little deceptive. They allowed Washington to convert 3 of their 10 attempts on third down. But where Washington really hurt the Broncos was with the screen game, was in the short passing game. And it was on first down, second down, allowing chunk yardage here. That, to me, I think was a huge issue overall. I mean, Washington, they ran 66 total plays. They averaged 5.9 yards per play. I mean, you look at where Denver's at. They had 62 plays, and they averaged 6.4 yards per play. So it doesn't tell the full picture here, but it was where it mattered the most. Like Denver's defense at times had moments where they were containing a little bit of what the Commanders were doing. But then, okay, ultra-aggressive pressure here by Vance Joseph. Tailback screen. You're dumping it off. Wide receiver screen. Couple of shots downfield. You're connecting. Terry McLaurin had a couple of big catches in that second half there for the Commanders against the Broncos. And all of a sudden, you're thinking to yourself, like, Denver has lost the entire momentum here. Then we saw ourselves in a situation where, okay, the Broncos defense backs against the wall. They allowed another conversion. And all of a sudden, now it's a 21-21 ball game. Things just got out of hand here for the Broncos. They never grabbed momentum after catching that 21-3 lead. And all of a sudden, they just lost it, and they could never maintain it the rest of the way. Very frustrating here, I think, with all the Broncos fans that I've talked to. And I think ultimately my main takeaway looking back at this game is Denver shot themselves in the foot too many times. I mean, we talk about issues that continue to impact them. I mean, in this game, they had 9 penalties. Last week against the Raiders, they had 10. So 19 penalties in 2 weeks. This is not what Sean Payton wants from this football team. This is not what Sean Payton coaches this football team to be like. Now, granted, there's some bang-bang plays that happen here in the NFL. But Denver at some point, I mean, gosh, I just go back to a couple of situations late in that game too where Denver could have gotten some momentum in that fourth quarter. It's third down. You get a stop. Fabian Moreau gets called for holding. And so now you have a penalty that it affords, okay, hey, you get a stop on third down. Holding call negates that, gives the Commanders a new set of downs. And all of a sudden, now you got to try to get another stop. And for Vance Joseph, he's got a lot of pressure. He's got a lot of heat on him right now by the fan base because he sent a lot of pressure. And there were times, look, obviously Denver came away with 4 sacks. But it wasn't enough to really fluster what Sam Howell was able to do, create some plays with his legs. And obviously, they had a holding call. He had a 19-yard run that got called back, and Denver was fortunate there. But you look at this game, really, the difference maker here was we talk about the screen plays, the big chunk yardage given up on first down here, and it came from the running backs here. I mean, Antonio Gibson had 3 catches for 44 yards. His longest reception of the day was 36 yards. Brian Robinson had 2 catches for 42 yards, his longest run of the day in terms of reception, 21 yards. But you look at chunk plays given up here. I mean, I can go down the list of receiving targets here for Sam Howell. Terry McLaurin's longest catch of the day, 30 yards. That's a massive play downfield. Bates, one of the other tight ends they got, he had a 35-yard catch down the field. Gibson, 36. We already talked about that. Robinson, 21 yards downfield. But then you look at Jahan Dotson. His biggest catch of the day was 18 yards. We're at 5 massive plays, explosive plays here. And then all of a sudden, you get to Turner, 12-yard catch. Curtis Samuel, 14-yard catch. Denver allowed over 8 or 9 guys to have big-time plays or catches or receptions in the passing game of 15-plus yards, 10-plus yards in this game. That right there speaks to a larger issue. And it's because I think a lot of it, you look at it defensively, Vance Joseph and his coverage, Sean Payton was not happy after the game about their defense. He said they were poor on defense. And that's exactly what happened there. And I think the thing that stands out to me is just chunk play after chunk play, right? Denver's defense, they're predicated. Their guys are sitting soft in coverage. They're playing off coverage here because they're playing a combination of zones. Sometimes they'll run man-to-man. It just depends on the pressure looks that they're looking to send after the Commanders here. But they just couldn't get off the field, or they couldn't set guys backwards on first or second down. Third down wasn't an issue. But hey, first and second down, it was free reign here for the Commanders. That, to me, I think was very frustrating. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, we talked about Marvin Mims, right? The 2 catches for 113 yards, 1 touchdown. He only had 2 targets in this game, and he hauled both those catches in. Didn't see a single target here in the second half for the Broncos. Cortland Sutton didn't see a single target in the first half of action, saw 7 targets overall in the second half. He had 5 catches, 66 yards. He had a couple of big plays there. But the thing that stands out to me is that Denver's passing game lacked rhythm in that second half. They couldn't get anything going. And that's where I think that the Washington Commanders defensive line, they did a better job adjusting to the Broncos offense than Denver offensively did adjusting to their defense and what they were able to do. And that, I think, is rough. It's not what this identity of this football team is. And now there are some serious questions about where this team is at, sitting at 0-2. Now you have 2 straight road games that are coming up. You have the Miami Dolphins next week. And look, hey, they had a big performance against the New England Patriots on Sunday Night Football. They have weapons galore in Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I mean, Raheem Mostert at running back. I mean, the list goes on and on. Tua Tagovailoa is playing really great right now under Mike McDaniel. And all of a sudden, Denver's going to face former defensive coordinator, former head coach for the team. And what at one point this offseason was a projected defensive coordinator for them, Vic Fangio. He's got that defense in Miami playing really good football right now. And it's a tough position to be in here if you're the Denver Broncos, because you have that game, you have a road game against the Chicago Bears. New York Jets are going to come to town here in 3 weeks. Then you got a Thursday night game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Then you got a home game against the Packers. And then you have another game against Kansas City Chiefs. That's 6 tough games right here, Broncos country, at least on paper, that if Denver plays the way that they've been playing defensively against this team, there is a real legitimate chance here. Denver could start off 0-7, 0-6 on the season at some point here. And I think that, okay, I need to take a little bit of a step back because you know me as usually the optimistic guy. Denver is in a position now, though, where they no longer control their destiny. They're in a tough position here because history tells us if you start the season 0-2 and you lose your first 2 home games, only 2 teams in the modern era in NFL history, I think out of 51 or something like that, have gone on to make the playoffs. The Cincinnati Bengals were an example of that last year. The last team, I can't even name them. So Denver's got a long uphill battle to climb here. And I think when you look at the optics of where this team is at, how they've performed, look, the offense has gotten better. But then they regressed a little bit in the second half. The defense right now for Denver is not as good as it was last year, which, you have a lot of the same personnel. You have a couple of new faces. Zach Allen in place of Draymond Jones. You look at the nickel. K'Wan Williams has been out. You have no safety depth right now. It's really banged up. Justin Simmons was playing his butt off for the team yesterday. And unfortunately, I mean, he even took he got banged up a couple of times here. And we'll see where he's at this week. But you look at that, you lose Kareem Jackson potentially to a suspension. Delarian Turner-Yale simply just they went after him a little bit in that second half there, the Commanders did. And so Denver's depth right now, safeties, is very questionable. And so if you're going to be without Kareem, I don't know if J.L. Skinner is ready, but I think it means that Denver's going to have to prepare for the Miami Dolphins as if Asang Bassi is going to play the safety position. And then you're going to have Jaquan McMillan coming in and playing maybe the nickel here. I don't know what the Broncos' other options are at this point. PJ Locke's still a couple of weeks away from being able to return here week 5. He'll be able to come off that short-term injured reserve. Hopefully K'Wan Williams is back by then. But Denver's defense has to figure it out because right now Denver, if you look at advanced analytics offensively, they're one of the top offenses right now in the league in terms of efficiency and scoring, despite going through that spurt that they did from quarters 2 through 4 in Sunday's loss. But then they are also have a bottom-ranked defense right now in the NFL, and that I think is not ideal. And I don't know what the answer is. I mean, usually I try to look at things. I have to see the tape one more time. I don't know how to fix the issues that this Broncos team has going on here, Broncos country. And look, I feel for you. The moment that the Commander scored that last touchdown that they had, so many fans just emptied it. And so if you're watching the game and obviously you saw a little bit of the Hail Mary magic at the end there, it was crazy because the cameras, they were panning around and all of a sudden there was nobody in the stands on a Hail Mary where Denver could have had a chance to tie it up at least in this game. We all know how the outcome went at the end there, but this Broncos fan base is rightfully frustrated because the last 7 years, this identity of this football team has been a losing franchise, and they continue. It's like it's easy for them to find ways to lose games, harder for them to find ways to win, and that is an issue in the grand scheme of things here. I don't know what Sean Payton is going to do. I just know that he was not very happy after the game, very disappointed, very pissed at the overall production and on the offensive side of the ball in the second half, but more importantly, not very happy about the defensive side of the ball as well. So I'll be very, very curious to see how he is. And look, he's always had this mantra too, right? Take long to hire, quick to fire. I don't know if we're already talking here after week 2 about removing a defensive coordinator. I don't know what Denver would do in that situation here, but Denver's got to figure it out. You can't just scrap the defensive playbook here. Obviously, a lot of the same scheme from last year, but just some different play calls and some wrinkles here from time to time. I don't know how Denver fixes these issues. I don't know if they have to get back to basics to keep it simple. Don't know what that looks like here for them because they're in dire straits right now, 0-2, facing a very, very tough Miami Dolphins team here this upcoming week. But Broncos country, thank you so much for joining me on this Good Morning Broncos episode here on Monday. We're going to be doing a mailbag here for tomorrow's episode of the show. So if you have any Broncos related questions, you want to get them answered here on the show. If you're watching here on YouTube, comment it down below and we'll include it in tomorrow's episode of the show. Broncos country, I feel for you. I'm sorry you guys have to go through this. We'll keep you covered every step of the way here, every day. Good Morning Broncos, 9 o'clock a.m. Mountain Time. I'm Cody Roark. We'll see you then.